بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه الطيبين الطاهرين. We ask Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala to grant us all the sincere intentions. We reached the saying of the Shaykh rahimahullah, قال النسفي فإذا ضرب إنسان. So let's start from there inshallah. قال المؤلف رحمه الله قال النسفي فإذا ضرب إنسان زجاجا بحجر فكسره فالضرب والكسر والانكسار بخلق الله تعالى، فليس للعبد إلا الكسب، وأما الخلق فليس لغير الله. قال الله تعالى: لها ما كسبت وعليها ما اكتسبت. So this means that An-Nasafi, Al-Imam An-Nasafi, the Imam who is well renowned and known for his famous Aqidah, known as Al-Aqaid An-Nasafiyya. This is taught in the East and the West. He was a Hanafi scholar, just like Al-Tahawi, and his creed, it is known in all of the Islamic world. MashaAllah. He said, فَإِذَا ضَرَبَ إِنسان. So if a person was to hit a piece of glass with a stone, and as a result broke the glass, then the hit, the breaking, and the state of being broken are all creations of Allah Ta'ala. The slave has nothing except acquisition. As for creating, then this is not for other than Allah. Allah revealed that every nafs will have what it acquired of good, and on it will be what it acquired of bad. For it will be what it acquired of good, and against it will be what it acquired of bad. So let's look at that again. فَلَيْسَ لِلْعَبْدِ إِلَّا الْكَسْبِ. Al-kasb means acquisition. Okay? It doesn't mean creating. So the slave, the human being, likewise the angels, the jinn, the animals, beasts, insects, all of these, they acquire deeds. Meaning what? Allah created the deeds, and we do them only because Allah willed that we would do them. So for example, let's look at this example of the stone. There is a human being whom Allah created. This human being got a thought. Allah created it. He intended, he drove his heart, he intended in his heart, both of which Allah created, the intention and the heart, directed it towards picking up the stone. Allah created this. He outstretched his hand. Allah created his hand and the outstretching. He grasped the stone. Allah created him grasping the stone and him feeling that he's holding the stone. Allah created it. The lifting up of the stone, Allah created his hand, the stone, and the lifting up. Allah created all of this. Then the flinging of the stone, Allah created that propelling movement. Allah created every bit of air that passed over the stone as it moved through the air. When it came into contact with the glass, Allah is the one that, of course, created the glass, the coming into contact with the glass and the stone, and the cracking in the glass, and the state of it being broken. All of that was created by Allah. Someone might ask, what did the human do? What is it that the human did? We're not going to say the human created, i.e., brought from non existence into existence, because that is exclusively for Allah. So, what did the human do? The human acquired the deed. Allah willed that this human would be given or seen, would be seen to be picking up the stone and hurling the stone, casting it onto the glass and the glass breaking. What did he do? He just acquired the deed. All of this has already been written in the guarded tablet. So this human being is just, if you want to say, if you will, just acting out, just implementing what is already written. The script is already there. Okay, why is it then that this slave of Allah Ta'ala is rewarded if he does a good deed? Why is it? Because he can't create the deed. That's just for Allah, of course. That's an attribute of God. So why is he rewarded for doing a good deed when he's actually just acquiring it, just acting out what's been written in the Lawh al-Mahfuz? Why is he getting rewarded? Well, because Allah is eternally generous. Allah willed to reward the slave for the deeds Allah gave him, Allah created for him. Allah revealed in the Quran, وَمَا رَمَيْتَ إِذْ رَمَيْتَ, right? وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ رَمَى. Allah revealed about the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam in one of the wars, when the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam threw something. Allah revealed, وَمَا رَمَيْتَ, meaning, O Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, you did not throw that, meaning you did not create the throwing. Allah created it. وَمَا رَمَيْتَ, literally, you did not throw, i.e., you did not create the throwing. إِذْ رَمَيْتَ, but you threw, meaning you acquired this deed that Allah created, that Allah eternally willed, and the pen wrote on the guarded tablet that's written there. The Prophet acquired this deed. Allah created it for him. He did it. لكن الله رمى, but all in all, Allah is the one that has created all of the deeds. So someone might ask, okay, then if a person commits a sin, why do they get punished? If it is the case, and it is the case, that Allah is the creator of the good and the bad, including these sins, then why is a person punished when they're just acting out what has been written? The answer is, this is the justice of Allah. Doesn't Allah own you? Yes. Doesn't Allah own your hands, your face, your eyes, your ears, your legs? Doesn't Allah own all of that? Yes. Okay. Isn't it the case that the one that owns something can do with it whatever he wills? And then, if he does with it whatever he wills, he cannot be accused of injustice, because injustice means to meddle in what someone else owns, right? So Allah owns people. Allah owns the seas, the rivers, the trees, the oceans, the skies, all the animals. Allah owns everything. So Allah does with his creation whatever he wills. If Allah wills to create for a person to do a sin and then to punish that person for committing that sin that Allah created, this is justice from Allah. This is justice. La yus'alu amma yaf'al. Allah revealed a person will that Allah revealed Allah is not to be asked about what he does. La yus'alu amma yaf'al لأنه فعال لما يريد, because Allah does whatever he wills, tabaraka wa ta'ala. La amira wa la nahiya lah. There is no one to order Allah, and there is no one to prohibit Allah, tabaraka wa ta'ala. الشرح. الضرب هو فعل العبد وقد يحصل منه انكسار وقد لا يحصل. The hit, the strike, right? It is the act of the slave. Apparently, the slave does it, and it might happen from it as a result of it. A crack might occur, and it might not happen. والكسر هو فعل العبد الذي فعله في الزجاج بواسطة الرمي بالحجر. As for the break, الكسر in the glass, the break, it is the action of the slave that was done by the slave in the glass by the medium of the throwing of the stone. وأما الانكسار فما يحصل من الأثر في الزجاج. As for the state of being broken, it is what occurs of the trace in the glass. It is the trace of the breaking in the glass. فليس للعبد من عمله الاختياري إلا الكسب أي توجيه العبد. Here we should change it actually. I'll do it now. توجيه العبد. هو ما شاء الله هو توجيه العبد قصده وإرادته. Let's make it small. فإذا أين كنا؟ فليس للعبد من عمله الاختياري إلا الكسب أي توجيه العبد قصده وإرادته نحو العمل الاختياري الذي يخلقه الله في العبد عند ذلك. So, the slave, when it comes to his voluntary deed, it is nothing but acquisition. I.e., when the slave of Allah, when this creation, when the human, for example, directs his intention and his will towards an act, he wants to do an act, a voluntary act, of course. Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala has eternally willed that this would come into existence if it's been eternally willed that it would actually exist, then Allah has eternally willed that it would come into existence at the point that this slave wills it. Right? Let me give you an example. A person wants to pick up the book of the Quran. So they go and they outstretch their hand. So they wanted to pick up the book of the Quran. Now we don't know, has it been written? Imagine you have wudu and you want to pick up the book of the Quran, but you do not know, has it been eternally willed by Allah that I will pick up the book of the Quran? I don't know. Is it already written? Yes, it's already written. Do I know what's already written? I don't know. That's my destiny, but I don't know. I know it's already been written. And a proof of that is in the guarded tablet, in Al-Lawh al-Mahfuz, above the skies. But now let's see if it has been eternally written. Let me intend to pick up the Quran. I outstretch my hand. Of course, Allah creates that. Now, suddenly what happens? This time, Yes, I touch the book of the Quran and I'm able to lift it. This tells me that all along it was written in the guarded tablet that I would be able to lift that book of the Quran. When I intended to lift the book of the Quran, Allah eternally, without a beginning, Allah had eternally willed, Allah knew and eternally willed that at this point in time, Allah eternally willed to create within me this ability to do this deed. So that when I make an intention to pick up the Quran, the book of the Quran that Allah created, the intention, when I make the intention that Allah created to pick up the Quran, Allah had eternally willed for me on this occasion that I would be able to lift the Quran. Allah created this, that I would lift the book of the Quran. On another occasion, I wanted to lift the book of the Quran, let's say, and I intended to do that. And as I outstretched my hand, somebody rang the doorbell. So I was a little startled by that, and I forgot about lifting the book of the Quran. I went to open the door. That's because eternally Allah didn't will for me to lift it at that time. It was not written for me. It was not written for me. Okay? So what do I get out of all of this? What is it that I do now? One might say, what is it I get out of all of this? I definitely don't create my own deeds. It's not the case that, well, I outstretch my hand and wal'ayadhu billah, that Allah doesn't know that am I going to be able to lift it or not because I am the one creating and Allah doesn't know what's going to happen. And I am the one that is bringing this deed into existence, and that's why I'm going to be rewarded on the day of judgment. No, rubbish. Creating is exclusive to Allah. Creating is exclusive to Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. As for me, I acquire the deeds that Allah created for me. If you look at an example, if you look at another example, sometimes people take issue with this. They say, but they might say, how can I just be controlled like that and not have um, my own, to be autonomous? Why can't I be independent? Why is it that I need to be controlled? Why is it that, well, first thing is, look, do you, this is in your head. This is in your head that you are being controlled and you are being such and such. And you are extremely paranoid. Why? Because when you want to do something, you do not feel that your hand is being forced. When you want to go to the gym at 4 a.m. in the morning, no one is pushing you to do that except you. Don't you feel yourself that you're the one that is determined to get up at 4 a.m. in the morning and go to the gym? Isn't that you? Do you feel like someone's forcing you to do that? The answer is no. You feel like you direct your intention towards something and then you go and do it, right? Yes, we say that, of course, it's because Allah has eternally willed that you would have that intention that Allah created and that you would walk those steps that Allah created and lock your door that Allah created and get into your car and go to the gym. All of that Allah created. So this idea of, but I want to be autonomous. I want to be independent. I don't want to be forced. I don't want to be this is all in your head. Yeah, the fact of the matter is that whatever you do end up doing, Allah has eternally willed it, and Allah eternally knows it, and Allah eternally willed that it would come into existence by His power at the time at which that thing happens. So a person shouldn't worry about, well, am I really, they shouldn't ask dangerous, silly, and blasphemous questions like, am I really getting justice? Am I really this? Am I really that? Because everything is under the control of Allah. We want to be safe. We want to take the means that Allah has created, that Allah revealed are means towards truth, success, and perpetual pleasure in the hereafter. That's what we're after. So, and we love obeying Allah, tabaraka wa ta'ala. So we obey Allah, tabaraka wa ta'ala. We're in the right places at the right times. Okay? We are, if like it said, if you don't attend, if you're not present, then how are you going to achieve or enjoy the rewards that those that were present enjoyed? Right? So we learn the religious knowledge. We love Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. We fear punishment, but we are hopeful of the generosity of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala and the great signs of the endowment of the abundance, the endowments, the abundant endowments that Allah has given us. And we say to anybody who says to us, but don't you don't have free will? You don't have, we say, La yus'alu amma yaf'al. Allah is not asked about what he does. Rightfully, Allah owns us. And we submit to that. So we submit to that. If you say to someone, if your ego cannot accept that, then you've got a big problem. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Some people's ego is like that. That is a despicable situation to be in. Can you imagine that? آمنت بالله ورسوله محمد عليه الصلاة والسلام. Imagine that. Some people are like that. They say, if there is a God, then I'm angry with him. How dare he control me? Or how dare he eternally will something and not let me have my free will? Some people try to get on your emotional side. They might say to you, oh, so you don't even have free will. You're forced, right? You're forced. We say, we as creation, because everything has been willed already, right? We do have this element of being forced. Yeah, but I'm not mentioning that in a negative sense. Yes, everything is already willed, of course. But also remember that on the day of judgment, I will be told that you, yes, although everything was willed, but you didn't feel forced. And you, by your own inclinations, by your own intentions, you feel that you are here because of what you did. A person won't be able to say on the day of judgment, but Allah, or to the angels, but Allah willed it for me. Allah willed it for me. Yeah, but didn't you, when you did those sinful things, when you wanted to enjoy those sinful pleasures, didn't you intend those things? And then that intention that started in the heart, didn't it then develop into actions and surge into the organs so that your hands started to do things, your lips started to move, your feet started to move and walk to that sinful place? Did you feel forced? Was someone pulling you with a rope, or did you feel like you wanted to go and experience that sinful pleasure? You wanted to do those sinful things, right? So yes, it's true that partly we are, if you want to call it, forced. Everything's already written. But we feel right now that we can, that we have a sense of, if someone wants to call it free will, but I guess we shouldn't call it free will. If someone wants to pick something up right now, they pick it up without hesitation. They want to drink a lot of water, they drink it. If a doctor's told them, don't drink fizzy pop, but they want to drink it. They want to disobey the doctor. They drink it, right? That's them. They didn't feel like they were being forced by anybody. So what is it now for a person to come and say, well, I feel like I'm being forced? Or to say, oh, how would God exist? Because that would mean that he's forcing us to do things that we don't have any control. It's more than, it's more meticulous. And the be all and end all is, if I was to say to you, you know what? I know God exists. I know everything's eternally willed. Okay. I know everything is already written, okay? And I'm really scared. Really, I'm really scared. So what am I going to do? I'm going to play. I'm going to be on the safe side and do what? Yes, I'm going to keep making dua. I'm hoping that I'm amongst those victorious people, and I'm not going to be in the bad places with the bad people doing the bad things and doing and ticking all the boxes that I could tick that will take me to hell. I'm going to be in the right places. I'm going to be with the right people. I'm going to tick all the boxes that would make that would give me a stronger case on the day of judgment to get into paradise. I'm going to do those things. And Allah is eternally generous. If I ask Allah to guide me, I think well of Allah. Allah will give me. If I, in my sujood, I ask Allah, Ya Allah, guide me. Ya Allah, grant me death upon Islam. This is just for you. Sincerely, Ya Allah, I ask you, give me, Ya Rabb, give me, Ya Rabb, give me, Ya Rabb. Don't you think Allah will guide? Don't you think that Allah will guide you? Being arrogant, being stubborn, these are big problems, subhanallah. Big problems, especially when it comes to creedal matters, but also other. Yani, subhanallah. Uh, MashaAllah. I did intend, of course, to follow the text when on a, let's say, short digression there. Let's come back to the text now. Ya Rab. فالكسب الكسب is acquisition. ليس للعبد إلا الكسب. The slave acquires only. Acquires what? The slave, he implements. Implements what? The slave acts out. Acts out what? What's already written in the guarded tablet. MashaAllah. قال تعالى لها ما كسبت أي من الخير. Literally, for you is, or for the nafs, for the soul, is what it acquired of good. It is for it. It is for it. It will be rewarded for it. It will have it. وعليها, and on it, like falling down on someone like a ton of bricks, on that person, this person is guilty. On that person is what it acquired of evil. لها ما كسبت وعليها ما اكتسبت. What it acquired of good and what it acquired of bad. قال الله تعالى وما رميت إذ رميت ولكن الله رمى, which literally, if taken literally, means, and O Muhammad, you did not throw, but you threw. Yet, literally, Allah is the one that threw. It means that, O Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, you did not throw, meaning you did not create the throwing. This was about a war when the Prophet threw something alayhi salatu wasalam towards the enemy. وَمَا رَمَيْتَ, and you did not throw, i.e. create the throwing. إِذْ رَمَيْتَ, when you threw, you did not create the throwing when you threw, but you actually threw because Allah willed for you to throw. وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ رَمَى literally means, but if one wants to say, but Allah threw, meaning Allah is the one that created the throwing. And Allah is the one that created you doing the throwing. فأثبت الله تعالى الخلق لنفسه وتمدح بذلك لأنه شيء يختص به وأثبت للعبد الكسب وهذا هو المذهب الحق. So Allah confirmed creating for himself, and Allah Ta'ala is praiseworthy for this, for creating. This is a praise of Allah, to say Allah creates. This is a praise of Allah. La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. When we say La ilaha illallah, it means there's no creator but Allah. تمدح بذلك. This is exclusive to Allah, so it is a praise of Allah. Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala is the only creator. Creating is specific, exclusive to Allah. Therefore, it is a praise of Allah. If somebody claim that I create and that they create, meaning like Allah, billah, this would no longer be something that has remained exclusive to Allah. So then, if it was said Allah created such and such, in this scenario, this thing that they're calling Allah would not be praised by creating. And Allah confirmed acquisition for the slave. See, وهذا هو المذهب الحق. This is the true methodology. This is the school of the truth. So, brothers and sisters, if you do not know this information in this clear-cut way, then that is problematic. Why? Because, however, how do you portray your belief to somebody? Even before that, defend your own belief. Gone should be the days where a non-Muslim would come to you and say to you, why do you believe in such and such? And you would reply, for example, I don't know, we just do. Al-Islam makes sense. Al-Islam, it is beautiful. It is the truth. It is clarity. It is purity. It beautifies the mind, does Al-Islam. The belief in Allah, Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, is so clear. Alhamdulillah al-Mawla. A person really needs to understand this, really needs to review this about Al-Qadr, that Allah created good and evil. And the slave just acquires. MashaAllah. Next, we're going to talk about the kalam of Allah, Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, but I don't know if we should start that today. Let me read some of this, inshallah. Ahlul Sunnati wal Jama'ah, in the case of Al-Qadr, they are the just ones. They are the ones that are fair between the two extremes. Indeed, we confirm that the slave has actions that are attributed to him by his will, but that Allah is the creator of those actions, just as it is understood from the saying of Allah, وَمَا رَمَيْتَ إِذْ رَمَيْتَ وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ رَمَى. In opposition to us are the Mu'tazila and the Jabriyah. The Mu'tazila said that the slave is the creator of his own deeds. وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ مِنَ الْكُفْرِ. By that they belied the saying of Allah, Allahu khaliqu kulli shay. Allah is the creator of everything. And they opposed the judgment of the mind. And an explanation of that is that the slave, had he been a creator for his own deeds, he would have been knowledgeable about all of the meticulous details. This is that this is because bringing something into existence with power and by will, it only occurs except if a person knows all the meticulous details. And what we currently see, however, debunks that, their claim that their deeds. Why? Because walking from one place to another, a person does not know the distance even between the feet, for example. Walking from one place to another might include being still sometimes, intermittently being still, and then moving, and then sometimes moving quicker, and then sometimes moving slower. And the one walking doesn't feel any of that. No. And this is not a person being negligent. Rather, had he been asked, he would not know. And this, if this is the case for amongst the most apparent deeds of a person, then what about the situation of the slave? If we look at not just walking, if we look at the slave's movements, the movement of his bodily limbs, his organs, when he walks and when he takes things and when he does things with his hands, and other than that, then it's even more apparent that he doesn't know all the details about all of these things. So how would he be the creator of them? So that refutes the Mu'tazila. As for the Jabriyah, they claimed that the slave doesn't have any deeds at all. They claimed, so let me mention from the beginning. The Jabriya are kuffar because they say that we are not accountable. Okay. The Mu'tazila said that we are accountable because supposedly we create like Allah. We create our deed. That's why we're accountable. So that's kufr. The Jabriya, they said that we are not accountable because Allah creates everything. We're like a feather in the wind, moving left and right. They said, therefore, we are not accountable, and by this they became kuffar. So the Jabriya za'amat, and they claim that the slave doesn't have any deeds in the first place, and that his movements are like the movements of, let's say, non-humans or قد يقال inanimate objects that have no strength to move and they have no intention or choice. And this saying of theirs is a corrupt one. Because we, as humans, of course, differentiate necessarily between the movement of one's hand and the, what's it called, shivering. And if the human did not have any deeds at all, if they didn't do anything, then it would not be valid to hold them a person to account. And likewise, a person wouldn't be rewarded for things. They wouldn't deserve being rewarded or being punished for their deeds. The truth is, as Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu said to someone who asked him about Al-Qadr, he said, La jabr wa la tafweed. We don't say a person is like a feather in the wind being moved left and right, and hence is not accountable. We don't say that. That's kufr. To say that we don't deserve punishment and that we don't deserve uh, the good deeds or the reward for the good deeds that Allah promised. Likewise, we don't go the other extreme. We don't say that we don't uh, say that the Mu'tazila are, no, sorry, we don't say that a person creates his own deeds. Then there are some proofs. Abu Mansur al-Baghdadi fi Usul al-Din said in the sixth, I guess, chapter or sixth point, when it comes to mentioning the justice of the Creator and his wisdom, he said that they differed in opinion about the acquisitions of the slaves and and the deeds, let's say, of the animals or the things that have souls. They disagreed, and there were three schools in this. The saying of Ahlul Sunnah, which is that Allah is the creator, just as He is the creator of the bodies and the colors, tastes, fragrances, and there is no God other, no creator other than Him. Rather, the slaves are acquirers of their deeds, and this is the truth. Then there is the second school of thought, which is that of the Mu'tazila, it seems, or Al-Jahmiyyah. They said that the slave is in desperation in terms of the deeds that are attributed to him. And they don't have acquisition of these deeds. And they do not have an ability to do these deeds. And that their voluntary deeds are like the pulsating veins and arteries in the way that they are involuntary, which is, that's just a lot of rubbish that that Jahmi ibn Safwan said. And the third one is the saying of the Qadariyah. They claim that the slaves are creators for what they acquire, and that everything with a soul creates its own deeds, and that Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala did not create anything of the deeds of the slaves. Wal-'ayadhu billahi ta'ala. Then he said, and the proof against the Qadariyah, the Mu'tazila people, from the Quran is Wallahu khalaqakum wa ma ta'malun. Allah created you and what you do. So Allah confirmed in this ayah deeds for the slaves, as opposed to what the Jahmiyyah said, that the slave doesn't have any deeds. And Allah informed us about Himself that He is the creator of their deeds. So the ayah shows us the invalidity of the stance of the Qadariyah and the Jahmiyyah. Al-Imam Abu Hanifa said in his book Al-Fiqh Al-Akbar, all of the deeds of the slaves, such as their movement, their stillness, is their acquisition in reality. And Allah is their creator. And all of them are under the will of Allah, by His knowledge, by His creating, by His destining. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam wa ahkam. We will stop here today. Subhanallah. Allah yubarik fikum for attending with me, reviewing with me. MashaAllah. Allahu yajzikum khairan. May Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala grant us all good. We ask Ya Rabb al-Alameen, by the virtue of these 10 nights that you revealed in the Quran, وَلَيَالٍ عَشْرٍ, Ya Rabb, Ya Rabb, Ya Rabb, Allahumma arzuqna al-Hajj. Ya Allah, grant us to perform al-Hajj. Allahumma arina al-Ka'bata yaqadha. Ya Allah, grant us to see the blessed Kaaba whilst awake. Ya Rabb al-Alameen, grant us to visit those holy lands and worship you there, Ya Rabb al-Alameen. Ya Rabb. Remember on the day of Arafah, which is soon, on Saturday, remember to perform lots of acts of worship and make lots of dua. No dua goes unanswered or unheard. No dua is unknown. Allah knows absolutely everything. So ask Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala on the best day of the year, especially after al-Dhuhr until al-Maghrib. Allah yubarik bikum. Let's stop here, inshallah. Let's say La ilaha illallah, as-salah ala al-Nabi. Before we do, sorry, there's a question here. You said, please explain again why it is not correct to say free will if someone refers to the freedom for one to choose the truth and not the falsehood. In this sense, it can be said. Well, originally that's not what it means. So just to be precise, um, we don't have an absolute free will, do we? In the sense that everything has been written already, right? So the notion of free will that was not introduced, and this term free will was not introduced by Muslims. So, from what I understand or remember when I looked into the issue, the word free will was introduced by some non Muslims, and they meant by it something that is not compatible with our beliefs. It doesn't comply with our beliefs. So, as a term in itself, I don't use it. Yeah, instead you could say something like, I mean, it's your choice when it's on your head. If you get it wrong, it's on your head. Okay, let's see. Okay. Barakallahu fikum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.